Enrico Fermi, Exploring the Abundance and Annihilation on the Nuclear Frontier,
by Araf Pandati and
Suryan Jain. The production of nuclear energy, the most abundant energy in the universe, the annihilation of a city with one bomb blast, the treatment and cure of different cancers. One man's research covers all these regions of the nuclear frontier.
he was nicknamed the Pope of Physics and the architect of the atomic bomb. He lived at the same time as Albert Einstein. His name is Enrico Fermi. Enrico Fermi was an Italian physicist and a Nobel laureate known for his groundbreaking research in the field of nuclear physics. A critical day in history that will always be associated with Fermi is December 2nd, 1942, when a group led by him built the world's first nuclear reactor. This was a part of the Manhattan Project, which laid the foundation for harnessing nuclear energy for both constructive and destructive purposes. Fermi's success with the controlled chain reaction was what allowed all the events that followed.
On September 29, 1901, Enrico Fermi was born in Rome as the youngest of 3 siblings. Fermi was sent to a public school and was an average student. At the age of 14, his elder brother, Giulio, died from minor surgery that left him heartbroken. His parents encouraged him to focus on his education to distract him and help him cope. His father's colleague observed the brightness in Fermi and lent him advanced textbooks in math and physics that encouraged him to explore the subjects and excel in them. He studied at various schools and universities and received his first doctorate in 1922. 6 years later, he married a Jewish girl, Laura Capon, who was also a physicist and daughter of an admiral in the Italian Navy. Fermi started to teach and research at the University of Rome, where he focused on physics. He also created close friends. Then he traveled to America to work on nuclear physics, a growing field. In 1936, Fermi returned to Italy, which had started to become the center of physics research. Since he wanted to make Rome the center of nuclear physics as well, Fermi played a significant role to bring the neutron moderator to Rome around the same time. It was a machine that started a nuclear reaction and released neutrons at the reader, which detected the number of neutrons that hit. 2 years later, in 1938, Fermi's work on slowing down the neutrons with wax shielding and creating new radioactive elements earned him a Nobel Prize. At that time, the world was divided, and the great powers were fighting for supremacy. Fermi grew increasingly uncomfortable with the fascist policies of his homeland. Benito Mussolini was a Hitler-like dictator in Italy. He even embraced the anti-Semitic policies of its ally, Nazi Germany. The Jews were being persecuted in fear for their lives and left the country for safety. As Fermi's wife, Laura, was Jewish, winning the 1938 Nobel Prize for Physics serendipitously supplied the excuse for Fermi's family to journey abroad. The prize money permitted them to establish themselves in the United States. After a long journey, Fermi, with his family, arrived in New York on January 2, 1939. Major powers sought to create more weapons. Einstein recommended the president to include Fermi in the U.S. nuclear research team, explaining his expertise in nuclear energy and potential for developing more destructive bombs. Hence, Fermi was immediately approached by U.S. government officials about the possibility of atomic energy for war purposes. He was brought into the Manhattan Project, which led to his work on nuclear chain reaction being moved to Chicago, where he finally settled in 1942. The Manhattan Project needed to construct the Chicago Pile 1 for testing how a chain reaction could be controllable. The Chicago Pile 1 was the first self-sustaining nuclear reactor. Fermi designed this pioneering technology. The initial plan was to create the atomic reactor inside a building far away from other structures or people, but this never happened, so Fermi requested to create the atomic reactor under the squash courts at Stackfield at the University of Chicago. To create this nuclear reactor, Fermi's team needed to take thousands of pounds of lead, graphite, and uranium-235 and then cut them into bricks. This took a very long time to complete, as there were above 770,000 pounds of bricks. The team piled these bricks in an oval shape, employing wooden pillars to keep them steadfast. This approach took 18 days, and there were a total of 57 layers. Before this event, no one had known how to construct a self-sustaining nuclear reactor that could be powered on and off. Fermi solved this problem by utilizing cadmium rods. Cadmium rods would absorb the neutrons, starting and stopping the nuclear reaction. The reactor was very successful, and they celebrated secretly. By 1941, World War II was raging in Europe, and many countries had declared war on Germany. Germany and America were in an arms race for nuclear weapons, with uranium as a major resource. In 1942, U.S. efforts were focused on the Manhattan Project, and the scientists at Los Alamos were trying to create the first nuclear bomb. At this time, nuclear energy had the sole intent of creating a bomb. Enrico Fermi had to go undercover. In August 1944, he joined Los Alamos, the New Mexico site where the Manhattan Project was concerned with the engineering of atomic bombs. The project took about 3 years, but a lot of that time was spent debating if the bomb should be dropped or not. Fermi worked on the Chicago Pile 2, the second nuclear reactor that was supposed to create more energy. The atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6th and August 9th, 1945, respectively, which led to the end of the Second World War. Not everybody in Los Alamos felt like they were in the mood to celebrate. Many scientists felt lots of guilt for the amount of destruction they had caused.
This led to greater awareness of nuclear weapons and their potential for harm and destruction. Enrico Fermi himself might have been impacted by the side effects of radiation, as he died at the age of 53 due to stomach cancer. It is also noted that many of his colleagues died of cancer as well. This could be due to the exposure to radiation during their research, even though there is no evidence to support this theory. Other downsides of nuclear energy include incidents like the Chernobyl disaster and the Fukushima accident that had a lasting impact, leading to political discussions and anti-nuclear protests in the past. Throughout his life, Enrico Fermi had numerous accomplishments, such as the development of the nuclear power plant with the Atomic Energy Commission. The controlled chain reaction was his most noteworthy accomplishment as it helps the planet today. Nuclear energy now provides about 10% of the world's electricity from about 440 nuclear reactors. Nuclear is the world's second largest source of low-carbon power, 26% of the total in 2020. Over 50 countries utilize nuclear energy in about 220 research reactors. In addition to research, these reactors are used for the production of medical and industrial isotopes, as well as for training. The metallurgical lab that Fermi helped create was turned into a national laboratory and renamed the Argonne Laboratory. Since 1950, his lab has continued to work on creating fast reactors and advanced nuclear technologies, which will not generate as much waste. There have been 20 fast reactors with about 400 years of runtime. This is just another example of Fermi's lasting impact. Nuclear radiation is also used in many other fields like medicine, academics, scientific applications, and industrial uses. Hospitals and radiology centers perform approximately 10 million nuclear medicine procedures annually in the United States alone. This is in line with what Fermi himself had predicted during his lifetime.
Of course, we knew that atomic energy was potentially capable also of peaceful applications. One of them is the possibility of producing large-scale amounts of energy with a fuel of very little weight. This feature could make atomic energy useful in some situations in which ordinary fuels might not be practical. Also, the reaction produces as byproducts huge amounts of radioactive substances. They can be used for all sorts of purposes in physics, chemistry, and especially in medicine.
Now, every time you turn the lights on in your home or go for an X-ray, you will think about Enrico Fermi and his work.